Welcome to the Liberty Podcast with Clint Armitage. We are proclaiming liberty one show at a time, and the next one starts right now. Our soldiers died for your freedom. God gave us all rights and never leave them. It's time to step up for your freedom. So rally up now, this is America. Our soldiers died for your freedom. God gave us all rights and never leave them. Now it's time to step up for your freedom. So rally up, this is America. How is it going, everybody? Clint Armitage with the Liberty Podcast. So thanks for coming back. This episode is called Fighting an Utmost State of Bliss. But first, we're going to listen to a spoken word track before we get into it. Check it out. Matthew 5, So listen up. I know you're going through heartaches, and I know you're going through struggles. But God is trying to increase your performance. See, He is training you how to fight. And sometimes we need to be placed into battle in order to learn how to fight. Because we typically avoid hard situations, and we tend to find the path of least resistance. And God knows this, but He needs to make us stronger, so He leads us into war when necessary. Like He did for the Israelites in Judges chapter 3. Verses 1 and 2 says this. These are the nations that the Lord left to test all the Israelites who had not experienced any of the wars in Canaan. He did this only to teach warfare to the descendants of the Israelites who had not had any previous battle experience. So are you ready? Are you ready to fight? Because God gives you strength when you are weak. And there is power and authority in His name, because He fights for you. So even if you feel tired and beat down, know that you're blessed. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. Blessed, you are so blessed. Blessed are the merciful. Blessed are the pure in heart. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed, you are so blessed. All right, so I told you I would do it again, didn't I? This spoken word stuff, I really love it, putting it on the tracks and playing it as an intro. It's kind of like a worship before the sermon type of thing. Man, we're at church. So anyways, thanks for coming back, guys. This episode is entitled Fighting an Utmost State of Bliss. It's actually in two parts, fighting and then an utmost state of bliss. And the utmost state of bliss actually is the definition of the word Beatitudes. And that's what we'll be talking about, just like the spoken word track just talked about was, blessed or blessed are the peacemakers. And that's the Beatitudes, the first part of the Sermon on the Mount that Jesus did in Matthew 5. It's actually probably the most famous sermon that Jesus ever did. And He did it, I believe He did it with a big crowd up on the mount. Anyways, it's broken up into two, and that's one part of it, the Beatitudes, or Matthew 5 there. The first part of it, 1 through 12, actually, we'll be reading through. And then the other part, which is fighting, which it's kind of like when you kind of think about it, you go, well, that doesn't really match too much. Fighting, an utmost state of bliss. What I'm talking about here is when Jesus is on the mount and he's giving the sermon and he's talking about the Beatitudes. It's attitudes that are opposite of the world, where you actually have to fight to get through. And so I'll get into that a little bit more in just a minute. First, I want to start off where the fighting comes from. And you heard in the spoken word track that it talked about Judges 3. Well, I'm going to go to Judges 3 right now. Actually, I'm going to go a little bit before Judges 3 to Judges 2. So what's happening is Joshua basically has led the Israelites into the land. They've conquered, all kinds of land in the area of Canaan. And now he's up there in age. He's actually, passing away or passed away. And now the Lord is using judges to kind of take over leading the people, the Israelites. And that's the reason is because while Joshua was alive, the Israelites were following God and doing God's will. And they were in the zone with God. Well, after Joshua died, that leadership, that spiritual leadership left, then the Israelites started to go astray. And so God kind of started, putting them to task. And he allowed enemies to come in and start to cause havoc with the Israelites and, press them and all that. And then what God did was, after their cries of help, he had mercy and sent judges. So every so often a judge came in, male, female judges came in, and they took over and they kind of led the Israelites out of their oppression for a time. And while the judges were in charge, they followed God, and then they went back to their normal ways, and then God had to put them to task again. So anyways, in Judges 2, that's kind of what's happening. They're not following God. Joshua has died, and now they're not following God. So God is starting to test them. And he's testing them by putting them in situations where the enemies are basically conquering them, taking over them and all that, because they're not following through what they're supposed to do. And in Judges 2, in verse 21, this is what the Lord says. He says, I will no longer drive out before them any of the nations Joshua left when he died. I will use them to test Israel and see whether they will keep the way of the Lord and walk in it as their forefathers did. The Lord had allowed those nations to remain. He did not drive them out at once by giving them into the hands of Joshua. See, when they're following Joshua, Joshua was, conquering all the lands. But the Lord didn't allow them to drive everybody out because he knew when Joshua passed, these Israelites were not going to follow through. And so now they're in the land and they're basically causing havoc with the Israelites. So in the spoken word track, you heard it say, it's in chapter 3, talking about verse 1 and 2, that the Israelites who had not experienced any of the wars in Canaan, he was going to put them through these wars because he did it to teach them warfare. So they would actually learn how to battle and get experience in battle. And that's so that they could learn how to fight and get stronger. Because if you don't exercise those muscles, you know what happens? Atrophy. And if you don't use those muscles, like we talked about in the last episode, we talked about training, right? Warriors training. And you have to do it constantly. Otherwise, you lose the skill. You may not lose it all the way, but you have to kind of train to keep it up and exceed and continue to excel, right? So I'm bringing that's the fighting part. We're putting it together with the Beatitudes because when we talk about, I'm going to read through the Beatitudes right now, and you're going to see, or you're going to hear the difference of the way God says you're blessed and the way the world says you're blessed. Because we know in this world and in this world system, society believes that you're blessed when you have a lot of money, when you have fame, when you have power, when you have material things, right? When your life's going so well, then you're blessed, right? And that's true to an extent, because God may be blessing you because of your obedience or because he wants to bless you so you can bless others. So that's true to an extent. However, when you look at the Beatitudes, and the Lord is saying that you're blessed with the things that are opposite of what this world looks at, it's kind of upside down. And what it comes down to is you're blessed while you're fighting all the struggles, while you're fighting all the heartaches and the hardships and the struggle that you're going through in life. Think about the times in your life, think back right now, of all the times in your life where you were at your lowest. I mean, you were literally low of low, and you were struggling bad, and you were hurting bad. Isn't that the time where you were the most close with God during that time? You were so close with God because you were calling out to him. You were asking him for help. You were on your knees constantly. You were crying. Well, that's the time you're closest to God, right? That's the time you feel God's presence. That's the time you feel God's peace, that peace that transcends all understanding. Nobody knows what that feels like unless you're in that struggle and God speaks to you in the moment that you need it. And God provides a circumstance in the moment that you need it. Those struggles, those hardships, those persecutions, all the stuff that you went through when you were at your lowest, that's when you were the closest with God. That's why you're blessed. So I'm going to read through the Beatitudes, which is the first portion of Matthew 5 here. And we're going to start at verse 3 and go through verse 12. Okay? All right, here goes. Verse 3. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Okay, so you can totally see what I'm talking about here, right? It's the opposite of the world's view of being blessed. The Lord's saying you're blessed you're blessed being poor in spirit because yours is the kingdom of heaven, or it says theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn because they will be comforted. So what it's saying is these things that seemingly are not blessed in this world are actually blessed because God comes in and comforts you when you mourn. He fills you when you're hungry and you thirst for righteousness. So the fighting I'm talking about, even though it's Judges 3 where we're actually talking about war, but what I'm talking about, I'm trying to connect these together because you have to have a fighting spirit in order to understand that you are going to be put through, like verse 11 says, insults and persecution, okay? All these things that you have to actually fight through because you are blessed when people do that. You are blessed because they're doing it against you because of Jesus. And so you have to be a fighter. You have to understand that everything is opposite in this world. That's why the disciples turned the world upside down, quote unquote. They turned the world upside down because everything was backwards from what the world believes, just like it is today. Everything is upside down. The Lord is on one side and the world is on the other. That's why you cannot serve two masters, okay? And so being blessed is not something that looks pretty all the time. It may be that you're in a struggle right now. It may be you are poor in spirit. That means you're blessed because yours is the kingdom of heaven. It may be that you're mourning right now. You're blessed because you're going to be comforted. Okay. Blessed are the meek, who people think are weak, right? But meek does not mean weak, does not equal that. It says, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. And if you hunger and thirst for righteousness, you are going to be filled. And if you're merciful, you're going to be shown mercy. So being the opposite of this world, but still in a fighting manner, in a fighting sense, God is using these opportunities, like he did with the Israelites in Judges 3, using these opportunities to train you, to get you to understand how to fight, how to make you stronger, how to bring you through the struggles, because life is full of struggles. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian or non-Christian, you're going to struggle. It rains and it shines on everybody on this earth. So no matter how, godly or spiritual people think they are, they go through things. Now, there may be a facade and it may show or it may seem, because you don't see, especially with social media, you rarely see the negative side of it, right? Everybody's putting on their best side, their best pose, their best clothes, their best shots. And so when you're looking at social media, you're looking at it and going, wow, they're having a great time. Wow, they're always on vacation. Well, not really. They're not always on vacation. It's just the fact that they post vacation photos all the time. So every time you see a post from them, they're on vacation. So it's a misconception. It kind of clouds what you're seeing. So it becomes a facade of what's really going on, because everybody has problems. Everybody struggles. Everybody has to fight. And God is allowing some of this stuff so that you do learn to fight like he taught the Israelites. You have to experience battle. You have to, because then you don't strengthen your muscles. And if you don't strengthen your muscles, you're not going to make it through this life. And although we are going to get damaged, we are going to get beat down, if you know how to fight and you have experience fighting, then you're going to be able to get back up. And that is the key. You get back up and understand that God is allowing some of these things. Hopefully you didn't bring it onto yourself by making bad decisions. But if God is allowing it, then either way, you are learning from it. And you are blessed, even though you are being persecuted, even though you are being insulted, even though they're falsely saying all kinds of evil against you because of Jesus and because of the decisions you make. You're blessed. You're so blessed. So I hope this podcast really blessed you. And if you want to support the podcast, go to our website, or actually there's a link in the podcast description. Going right to our website, you can purchase a t-shirt, a Liberty t-shirt, or other Christian type t-shirts that are on there, the designs that we design and put up on the website there, and purchase it, and that actually supports the podcast. And that's helpful to keep us going here. It really helps us out here. Otherwise, you can go to our website, clintarmitage.com, and check it all out. We have the other apps that you can use to listen to the podcast. You can purchase, go to the store. There's other resources on there. But either way, we appreciate you helping out, and we appreciate you listening all the time. So my name is Clint Armitage. This is the Liberty Podcast. Thanks for coming by. We hope to see you again. And until next time, stay safe and keep seeking liberty.
Our soldiers died for your freedom. God gave us all rights and never leave them. It's time to step up for your freedom. So rally up now, this is America. Our soldiers died for your freedom. God gave us all rights and never leave them. Now it's time to step up for your freedom. So rally up, this is America.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Liberty Podcast with Clint Armitage. If you want to get in touch, email us at info@clintarmitage.com.